Welcome to another devlog of the tank game I'm making with the Godot game engine. The previous devlog was the last in the series of catch-up videos I had to make to share my progress on the game so far. I'm at the point now where I have to start building new features and new systems into the game, so these devlogs will now take on a more traditional devlog format where I show much slower, more realistic, incremental week-to-week progress on the game. I hope you'll join me or continue along with me in the journey. Having said all that, the first thing I have to do on this Sunday, January 29, 2023, is to merge in the tank movement prototype I showed in the previous devlog into the main Able Archer source code. I wrote the tank movement code in a separate project back in December because I wanted to be able to focus on the movement exclusively without having all the other systems get in the way. Alright, it's the following Monday. I had a couple hours of good development time yesterday, so I was able to merge in the input buffering and the clutch braking turns to the player controlled version of the tank. And as you can see, it works great. I no longer get the 8-way snapping bug that happens when I'm moving diagonally. I also merged it into the bump seek version of the tank, and it works pretty good. Next up, I have to add it to the A-star tank, so that's what I'm going to work on in the hour or so that I have before I have to switch over to my day job. Right now, here's what A-star looks like with the changes that I've made. Alright, the A-star tank now works with clutch braking turns. I changed it so that it translates the tile path that A-star generates into a series of move directions, which then serve as a series of steps for it to follow to reach its goal. Previously, I translated the tile path into global positions, and then it would try to get close to that global position, which is why it had that wild spinning around behavior yesterday. But now on Tuesday morning, 7 a.m., it works great. Now that that's done, the next items on the board are to fix these two simple bugs. They both have to deal with how the enemy tank looks at its neighboring tiles and figures out which of them are possible movement options. Right now it only considers trees as blockers, but if there's another tank here that's idle, it doesn't consider that as a movement blocker. The other bug has to do with how the bottom tiles here are not properly considered out of bounds, so I have to fix those two things. But after that, the more interesting thing that I'm going to work on is how to make the enemy tank spawn into the map. I wrote down a couple of ideas on how to do it. One of them is to warp in from a portal, kind of like how the Protoss would warp in, but I think that's too weird for my game, so I'm not doing that. Another idea is to just emerge underground from a trapdoor. If I would have a trapdoor tile here and the tanks would just come up from underneath it. But I think that will make the tank spawn too predictable, and it's also a little weird for the tanks to come from underground. A cool one that I thought of is airdropping from the sky with a parachute. If I can find a video of that I can use, I'll edit in here. But I think it's too hard. That's far beyond my current abilities as a game dev, and I'm not sure how to actually make that work in a top-down 2D game where your view is basically this view. So the idea that I'm going with is to just have them roll in from the top. So the tanks, the camera won't show it, but the tanks will line up out here, and then they will just roll in from the top. And it would be cool if they're here and they can come in with an explosion to destroy one of the border trees and just come in from different spots at the top of the map. Unfortunately, I have to switch over to the work laptop now and switch over to writing Go. My plan is to get back to this in the evening and hopefully fix the 2 bugs so that I can start Wednesday morning working on the tank spawning. So joining you back Friday evening, it took longer than expected to fix these 2 bugs because I underestimated the amount of time it would take to fix this get movement options does not consider tanks for diagonals. I also got sucked into some pretty cool stuff at work, so I ended up rabbit holing on that. Regardless, I fixed this first calculating out of bounds bug by just making the rectangle I use to calculate out of bounds smaller at the bottom than at the sides. The second bug, get movement options does not consider tanks for diagonals, is more interesting. Here is what would happen before the fix. Here is what happens now with the fix. It took more code than I expected to accomplish that, but here's a summary of what I did. I added 0.2Ds to the corners of the tank, and I used these points to determine which tiles the tank is occupying. I need one for each corner, because it's possible for the tank to be in between tiles. For example, if it's in the middle of these 4 tiles, then I mark these 4 tiles as occupied. Then the physics process now gets the tiles that the tank is occupying on every run, and I added this movement exclude class that has this tank positions dictionary, and it looks like this at runtime. When the tank is initialized, it gets added to the tank positions dictionary by its ID, and on the physics process runs, this update tank position function gets called to update the dictionary. And then when the tank is navigating or pathfinding, this has exclude function is what's called for each tile to check if that tile is occupied by another tank. Alright, now that these things are done and committed, I can finally get started on enemy tank spawning. Which is what I will do next week, because it's Friday evening and I still have to edit this video. Even though I didn't get much done this week, I'm still pretty happy with the progress. This is just the reality of part-time indie game development. What's important is to keep moving forward and make incremental progress. Anyway, that's the TED Talk portion of my devlog. Thanks for watching and goodbye.